The dining room looked like a magazine spread that had never been lived in. A white tablecloth lay perfectly flat, corners aligned. The good china sat centered on placemats that matched the warm tone of the pendant light. A single candle burned without flicker, its flame reflected in the polished silverware. The air carried the clean, peppery scent of seared steak and the faint sweetness of roasted potatoes. Even the green beans shone under a thin glaze, arranged as if someone had measured the distance between each one. Gregory Brooks walked in at 6:30 with the same easy rhythm he always had. He loosened his tie, kissed Simone's cheek, and smiled like the day had been ordinary. "What's the occasion?" he asked, pleased, already settling into comfort. Simone's blue dress fit the way it always did, smooth at the waist, soft at the shoulders. It was the one he always claimed made her eyes look brighter. She kept her posture relaxed, her expression warm enough to pass for normal. Her hands, however, held a quiet tension, fingers lightly pressed together beneath the edge of the table. "No occasion," she said. "I just wanted to do something nice." Gregory laughed softly, a sound that belonged in this room, and took his seat. His phone vibrated once in his palm as he sat down, the buzz muffled against his skin. He glanced at the screen without thinking, thumb hovering, then set it face down beside his plate. The simple act landed in Simone's chest like a weight. The knife met the ceramic with a clean, controlled scrape. Silver clinked in small, polite sounds. Wine caught the candlelight as it moved in the glass. Gregory talked about a contract he had landed, a meeting that went well, traffic that had been unbearable. He asked about her day, and Simone answered with the right amount of detail, the same practiced professionalism she used with clients. She watched him chew, watched him smile at a story that wasn't funny, watched him wipe his mouth with a napkin that matched the tablecloth, as if his life had always been this neat. When the plates were cleared, Gregory leaned back and took another sip of wine. His shoulders loosened. He looked satisfied, like the night had delivered exactly what he expected. He reached for his phone again. Simone rose before he could unlock it. "I'll be right back," she said, voice light. "Sure," Gregory replied, eyes already down. She walked through the hallway toward her studio at the back of the house. The air changed as she stepped inside, cooler, layered with the familiar smells of her work. Paint samples, cut fabric, the faint chemical edge of printer ink. The room was quiet, in a way the dining room never was. The kind of quiet that made thoughts sound louder. On the work table sat the folder she had built for 2 weeks. It was thick, heavy, unglamorous. The edges of the paper inside were sharp. A metal clip held everything together with a constant pressure. Even touching it felt like touching a truth that had teeth. Simone slid it under her arm. On her way back, she passed the living room. The crystal vase on the mantel threw a small rainbow onto the cream wall as the last of the afternoon light faded. For a moment, it looked almost beautiful enough to forgive. Then her eyes dropped to the white sofa where Ruth Patterson had sat, thin hands trembling as she emptied photographs onto Simone's coffee table. The memory came back in one clean flash. The doorbell at 2:47. The sun too bright. The manila envelope. Gregory's face, smiling beside children who were not hers. Simone kept walking. Gregory was on the couch now, comfortable in a way that felt obscene. His phone was in his hand again, screen lit, thumb moving. He looked up when she entered, still smiling. She crossed the room and placed the folder on the coffee table in front of him. The bottom edge of the folder dragged slightly against the glossy wood. A rough sound, paper against polish, like a scratch on a perfect surface. The room seemed to hold its breath around it. Gregory frowned, confused. "What's this?" Simone did not sit. She stood with her weight evenly balanced, arms relaxed at her sides, as if she were waiting for a client to approve a design choice. "Open it," she said. Gregory blinked once, then set his phone down. He flipped the folder open with the casual impatience of a man expecting paperwork, not consequences. The first page was a photograph. His own face stared back at him from a restaurant table, arm around Nicole Harper. Her blonde hair caught the overhead light. Gregory's smile looked easy, familiar, practiced. It took 3 seconds for his expression to change. Confusion drained away, replaced by recognition. Then something sharp and terrified. A pale wash moved across his cheeks as if the blood had stepped out of the room. Simone watched him like she was watching a crack spread through glass. "Simone," Gregory said, voice too quick. "No," Simone replied. The word landed with the same quiet firmness as the folder. No heat, no tremble, just a boundary. Gregory swallowed and looked back down. His fingers had started to shake, barely noticeable at first. He turned the page. More photographs. A park, a swing set, a small boy blowing out candles while Gregory stood behind him, hands on the child's shoulders, a little girl laughing. Gregory's eyes turned soft in a way Simone had only seen when he thought no one was watching. His throat worked. His jaw tightened. He flipped another page. Financial records, transfer histories, account numbers Simone had never seen, tuition invoices, a deed with Nicole's name on it, a second mortgage document tied to Simone's grandmother's house, black print on white paper, brutally plain. Gregory's breathing changed. The air left his lungs in short, shallow pulls. He stared down as if the page might rearrange itself into something less damning if he waited long enough. Simone stepped closer, just enough that he could feel her presence without being able to reach her. "Look at all of it," she said. Every page. Gregory's eyes flicked up. Wet. Panicked. "Please. Just let me." Simone held up a hand. Not dramatic. Not shaking. A simple stop. "You owe me that much," she said. The room was too bright. The lamp by the couch cast a clean circle of light on the coffee table, making the paper inside the folder look almost luminous. The silence between page turns grew heavier, filled only by the soft rasp of paper sliding over paper. Gregory kept going because he had no choice. Simone watched the man she had married begin to realize, one page at a time, that his life had been documented, time-stamped, and packaged into something he could not talk his way out of. When he reached the end, his hands were visibly trembling. His face had gone pale again, sweat catching at his hairline. He looked up at her with the desperate helplessness of someone who had always believed he could control the room. "Simone," he whispered, voice cracked. "Please." Simone's gaze did not soften. She reached into her pocket, pulled out her phone, and checked the time without hurry. Then she looked at him again. 29 minutes, she said. "Pack a bag and leave tonight." Gregory stayed frozen for a beat, as if his body didn't believe what his ears had just heard. His mouth opened, then closed. His eyes darted to the folder again, to the last page, to the corner where Simone's fingerprints had slightly smudged the paper. The coffee table suddenly looked too small for what was sitting on it. "This is my house too," he said, the words coming out stiff, rehearsed. "You can't just—" Simone didn't argue. She simply held his stare until the sentence collapsed under its own lack of power. "Go," she said again, calm enough to feel cruel. Timers running. Gregory pushed up from the couch like he was lifting a weight. He took one step toward her on instinct, palms half raised, as if reaching could rewind the last 10 minutes. Simone shifted back, not dramatic, not fearful, just enough to make the distance clear. The hem of her dress brushed her knee. Her voice stayed even. "Don't touch me." His hands hovered in the air, useless, For the first time, he looked like a man realizing that his usual tools, tone, charm, volume were all blunt. "You're overreacting," he tried, a thin edge of anger sliding in. "We can talk about this. Like adults." Simone turned her phone slightly so he could see the screen. "Not as a threat, as a fact. I can call my attorney," she said. "Or I can call the police." "Pick one." The room sharpened around them. The quiet hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. The soft tick of the wall clock that Simone had chosen because it sounded elegant, not loud. Gregory swallowed again, eyes stuck on the phone as if it were a weapon. He looked toward the front windows. Outside, the neighborhood had settled into evening. A dog barked once and then stopped. A car rolled past with headlights already on. Normal life, indifferent. Gregory's jaw clenched. "You're going to regret this," he said, a little louder, trying to force the air to obey him. Simone didn't flinch. Her gaze drifted to the folder, to the mortgage document buried in those pages, the one that made her chest feel cold every time she pictured her grandmother's handwriting on the original deed. "The only thing I regret," she said, "is trusting you." His expression flickered hurt, anger, then something close to calculation. He was looking for the crack, looking for the version of her that would soften, bargain, ask questions she didn't want answered. He didn't find it. Gregory's shoulders rose and fell in a tight breath. He turned toward the stairs. Each step he took sounded louder than it should have on the wood. The banister creaked in a small, familiar complaint. Upstairs, drawers began to open and close. Closet doors slid on their tracks. The zipper of a suitcase screamed as it moved, then stopped. Simone stayed in the living room, still standing, phone in hand. The candle on the table had burned lower, wax pooling around its base. The rainbow from the crystal vase had vanished with the last of the sun. Now the room was lit by lamps, warm and domestic, as if it were trying to pretend. Her eyes fell to Gregory's phone on the couch. It sat there face down, silent, a smooth black rectangle that had held two lives at once. She didn't touch it, not because she couldn't, but because she didn't need to. Everything she needed was already in the folder, already in the files on Thomas Morrison's report, already in Dr. Torres's neat columns, waiting to be turned into evidence. He doesn't know the folder already has a forensic trail and a no-contact order ready to file. The thought landed without triumph. It felt like locking a deadbolt. Upstairs, Gregory moved faster now, as if speed could turn this into a temporary fight instead of a permanent ending. A hanger clattered to the floor, something glass cologne, maybe tapped against wood and survived. His footsteps crossed the hall, back and forth, a frantic pattern. Simone walked to the front door and checked the lock out of habit. The metal turned under her fingers with a small, satisfying resistance. She looked at the chain, still unlatched, and imagined what it would sound like tomorrow when a locksmith replaced everything. She returned to the living room and sat down at last, not because she was tired, but because she refused to pace like the house belonged to someone else. The sofa cushion dipped under her weight. The fabric felt cool against the backs of her legs. From here, she could see the folder on the coffee table, thick as a brick. She could also see the spot where Ruth Patterson had sat, perched like a bird ready to fly, hands shaking as she pulled out photographs. Simone's throat tightened, but she didn't let the feeling rise higher than her collarbone. The clock kept ticking. Upstairs, a drawer slammed. Gregory muttered something under his breath, the words blurred by distance. Then the footsteps came back toward the staircase. He appeared with a suitcase in one hand and his laptop bag in the other. His tie was gone. His shirt collar sat uneven, one side folded wrong. He had the look of someone who had dressed in a rush after a fire alarm. He stopped at the bottom step. For a second, he didn't move, as if seeing Simone seated in her own living room made something inside him finally register. "This is insane," he said, quieter, trying again. "You're going to blow up everything." Simone stared at him, expression unreadable. "You blew it up," she said. "I'm just not living in the rubble." He took a step closer, then another, stopping just short of the space she had claimed. His eyes were glossy now. He looked like he wanted sympathy, and was furious that he couldn't force it out of her. "I'll fight you," he said, voice hardening again. "For the house. For the money. For all of it." A small smile touched Simone's mouth. Not warmth, not humor. Something sharper. "Good," she said. "Let's see how that works out for you." Gregory's hand tightened on the suitcase handle. The plastic creaked. For a heartbeat, he looked like he might throw the bag down and refuse to leave, make her call the police so he could turn it into a performance. Then his gaze dropped to her phone again, the calm way she held it, the fact that she wasn't begging him to stay, the fact that she wasn't crying. He seemed to understand that the scene he wanted wouldn't happen. He turned toward the door. The latch clicked when he opened it. Cold air slid into the room, bringing the faint smell of wet pavement and someone's distant laundry detergent. Gregory stepped onto the porch. At the threshold he paused, looking back with a mixture of wounded pride and fear, as if he wanted her to chase him just so he could feel powerful one last time. Simone didn't rise. She watched him leave as if watching a contractor walk out after finishing a demolition job. Messy, loud, necessary. The door shut. The deadbolt turned. The sound was small, decisive. The house didn't feel emptier. It felt reclaimed. Simone stood and walked back to the coffee table. She didn't gather the folder yet. She simply laid her palm on its surface for a moment, feeling the pressure of paper beneath leather, the weight of proof. Then she picked up her phone and scrolled to a number she hadn't called in days. Patricia Goldstein answered on the second ring. "He's out," Simone said. A pause. Then Patricia's voice, brisk and satisfied. "Good. Any trouble?" "Not yet," Simone replied, eyes on the locked door. "But he'll try." "Then we move," Patricia said. "Tonight you document. Tomorrow you change locks. And if he contacts you, one text, one call, you forward it." No responses. Simone's fingers tightened around the phone. "I'm ready," she said. Outside, a car engine started somewhere down the street. Tires rolled over gravel. The sound faded into the evening like a retreat. Inside, Simone walked toward her studio, already hearing in her mind the clean metallic click of new keys. The house didn't settle into silence so much as it reorganized itself around a new rule. Simone slept in broken pieces. Every time the heat kicked on, she opened her eyes. Every time a car passed outside, light slid across the ceiling, and her pulse answered it. When morning finally pushed through the curtains, it brought a clean, pale brightness that made the living room look innocent again. She hated that for it. By 8 o'clock, the locksmith was at the front door. He was efficient, all denim and tool belt, smelling faintly of cold air and metal. He knelt, removed the old cylinder, and worked with quick, practiced turns. Each click of his tools sounded like punctuation. Simone stood a few steps back, arms crossed loosely, watching the deadbolt come apart. "Any reason you're changing everything?" he asked. Casual. "Divorce," Simone said. He didn't ask questions after that. He just nodded, and the work continued. When he finally handed her the new keys, they were warm from his palm. They looked ordinary, identical, harmless, but the weight of them in Simone's hand felt like a boundary made physical. Her phone buzzed before the locksmith even reached his van. Gregory. A long string of messages stacked in the preview window. Apologies. Please. A sudden anger that snapped into blame. Her name repeated like it could drag her back into the conversation by force. Simone didn't open them. She forwarded every notification to Patricia, screenshotting only the timestamps, the sender, the fact of contact. Then, she blocked the number again. Patricia called immediately. Good, she said. Do not respond. Let him build the record for us. Simone walked into the kitchen, set the keys on the counter, and stared at them like they were a decision she could no longer unmake. What if he shows up? She asked. Then you don't open the door, Patricia replied. You call the police. You don't negotiate in person. Simone hung up and forced herself to eat something. Toast, black coffee, food that tasted like nothing. Her hands were steady now, but her mind kept returning to the same image, Gregory's face in the lamplight, as he realized how thoroughly she had documented him. At noon, her assistant Rachel called to confirm an afternoon meeting. Are we still on for the Martin consult? Rachel asked, cheerful, unaware. Yes, Simone said. We're on. She delivered the line cleanly, and after she ended the call, she sat at the dining table and let her eyes close for 3 seconds, just long enough to feel the burn behind them. Then she opened them again. Normal was a costume. At 1:30, a car slowed outside. Tires whispered along the curb, then stopped. Simone didn't move right away. She listened, still, as if her body had become a sensor. A door shut. Footsteps approached the porch. The doorbell rang, not the polite single chime of a delivery. 2 sharp presses in quick succession. Impatient, Simone walked to the front window, staying just out of view. Through the glass, she saw Gregory on the porch, his suit jacket gone, sleeves rolled up like he was prepared for a fight. His jaw was set. His eyes had that familiar look, indignation wrapped around panic. He leaned close to the door. Simone, he called, voice raised as if volume could make her reasonable. Open the door. This is ridiculous. Simone didn't answer. She stood behind the door, breathing through her nose, fingers resting on her phone. Gregory knocked hard now, the sound rattling the frame. You can't lock me out, he shouted. That's my house, too. Simone's thumb hovered over the call button, but instead she snapped a photo through the peephole. Gregory's face distorted slightly by the lens, but unmistakable. Proof first. Always. She texted the photo to Patricia with one line. He's here. Then she dialed the non-emergency line. When the officer arrived, the street looked the same as always. Sun shining on neat lawns. That normality made the whole thing feel surreal. The officer was a woman in her 40s, with tired eyes, and a voice that didn't entertain drama. Ma'am, she asked Simone through the cracked door. Is he threatening you? Not physically, Simone said. The officer stepped onto the porch, posture squared. Sir, you need to leave the property. Gregory's face shifted. He tried charm first. Officer, this is a misunderstanding. That's my wife. X. Simone said, flat and clear. Gregory's smile broke at the edges. The officer didn't flinch. Sir, if you remain, you can be cited. Leave now. Gregory's eyes snapped to the door, to where Simone stood hidden behind the screen, and something in his expression sharpened. A flash of anger, quick as a blade. You're doing this on purpose, he hissed, low enough that only she would hear through the gap. You're trying to ruin me. Simone didn't step closer. She didn't argue. She simply lifted her phone slightly so he could see it again, silent. Ready. Gregory's nostrils flared. He looked like he wanted to say more, to spit out something cruel that would make her feel guilty for having boundaries. Then the officer cleared her throat. Sir, she said again, firmer. Last warning. Gregory backed away, suitcaseless, empty-handed, leaving with nothing but his own rage. He walked down the steps too fast. Like retreat was humiliation. He got into his car, slammed the door, and peeled away from the curb. The street exhaled. Simone closed the door fully and locked it. The deadbolt turned with a crisp, unfamiliar sound. New metal, meeting new metal. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Gregory. Simone didn't open it. She forwarded it to Patricia and set the phone down. She stood in the quiet hall, breathing evenly, and felt something cold settle behind her ribs. Not fear, not sadness. Clarity. She walked back to her studio and opened the folder, adding a fresh page at the front. Date, time, police contact, photo attached, a record, not a story. Because whatever Gregory tried next, he wouldn't be allowed to turn it into a he said, she said. He'd already started digging, and Simone was already laying the boards over the hole. The first envelope from Thomas Morrison arrived 2 days later in a plain manila sleeve that didn't match anything in Simone's house. She opened it at her studio work table, under a lamp that made every staple and crease look sharper. The paper smelled warm, as if it had come straight off a printer. Inside were still frames from surveillance, clean and clinical, like proof didn't need emotion to be brutal. Gregory at a restaurant booth, leaning toward Nicole. Gregory outside a school building, pausing near the entrance as parents streamed past him. Gregory at a park, hands in pockets, watching two small children run in circles around a swing set. Simone stared at the photos until her eyes stopped, trying to turn them into something else. Her phone rang. Thomas's voice was steady, professional. I sent the first packet. There's more coming. How much more? Simone asked. As much as you want, he said. He's not careful. Not anymore. Simone's fingertips traced the edge of one still frame, the glossy surface cold under her nail. What about money? She asked. I'm working on it, Thomas replied. Account activity, transfers, property records. I'll have a clearer picture soon. Simone ended the call and sat still for a moment, letting the quiet settle. Her studio smelled like paint and fabric and fresh-cut paper. Outside the window, traffic moved like it always did. Inside, everything felt rearranged around one fact. Gregory had built a whole life that didn't include her, and he had used her life to pay for it. A notification flashed across her screen. Another message from Gregory. Blocked. Filtered. Still pushing at the edges. She didn't open it. She sent it to Patricia, then kept working. Not on a design. On distance. On evidence. On escape routes. That afternoon, a second packet arrived by secure email from Thomas. This one, with bank activity and notes. Simone sat at her desk and scrolled slowly, the blue light flattening her face in the reflection of her monitor. Transfers. Regular. Consistent. The kind of pattern that meant planning, not a slip. She clicked into the metadata file attached to one transaction record. The page loaded with a small pause. Then the details came into focus. 2:47 in the afternoon, the transfer timestamp matched the minute Ruth rang. The coincidence was too precise to be an accident. Simone felt her stomach tighten, as if her body understood what her mind had been refusing to name. Gregory hadn't been living a double life on stolen time alone. He had been funding it in the same minute Simone's world cracked open, as if even the moment of truth didn't make him stop. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Patricia. I saw what you forwarded, Patricia said. Good work keeping the trail clean. Simone swallowed, eyes still on the screen. He's still moving money. Of course he is, Patricia replied. People like him don't stop until a court makes them. Simone's voice stayed level, but it was thinner now. stretched tight over heat. The transfers are consistent. It's not small. Patricia paused, then shifted tone, more deliberate. Listen, do not confront him again. Do not warn him. Let him keep making deposits into his own case. Simone's gaze drifted to the corner of her desk, where a fabric swatch sat folded neatly beside a tape measure. Her old life, waiting to be resumed, acting like nothing happened. What about the house? Simone asked. The marital house is one thing, Patricia said. But if he used marital funds for another property, we can trace it. We can argue you have an interest in it. Simone's jaw tightened. He used my house. Silence on the line for half a beat. Patricia didn't need clarification. The second mortgage document had been in the file, plain as a bruise. That, Patricia said quietly, is not going to play well for him. Simone ended the call and sat with the words, not going to play well. It sounded like a polite way to describe theft. Her next client arrived 20 minutes later, smiling, carrying sample photos on a tablet. Simone met her in the front of the studio with a professional expression that felt like a mask pulled tight. She guided her through fabric options, spoke about color, temperature, and lighting, made precise recommendations. Her voice was calm. Her hands did not shake. Only her mind kept splitting in two. One part choosing upholstery, the other part watching a little boy in a park photo who had Gregory's nose. When the client left, thanking her, Simone closed the door gently and leaned her forehead against the cool glass for a moment. The street outside was bright, loud, normal. Inside, the air felt thinner. She returned to her desk and opened Thomas's file again. A short video was attached. She clicked play. The footage showed a park on a clear day. Sunlight flashing through leaves. Children's voices rose and fell in the background, thin and bright. Gregory's laughter cut through it, familiar, easy. The sound he used at family gatherings, the sound he used in their home. A boy ran toward him and collided with his legs. Gregory bent, hands landing on the child's shoulders as if he'd done it 1,000 times. The boy looked up, grinning, cheeks flushed from running. A little girl chased behind him, hair bouncing, squealing with the kind of joy that didn't know it was built on lies. Simone watched the clip without blinking until it ended. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, then moved with purpose. She downloaded the file, labeled it, and added it to her archive. She wrote the date in words. She wrote the location. She wrote the source. Chain of custody, clean and quiet. A soft sound came from the hallway. Rachel's footsteps, hesitant. Her assistant paused at the door. Are you okay? Rachel asked. Simone turned her monitor slightly so the video was no longer visible. Her face stayed composed. Her voice stayed steady. I'm working, she said. Rachel nodded, reading the boundary even if she didn't understand it. If you need me to stay late, I can. Simone looked down at the papers, at the ink, at the timestamps that refused to be argued with. Her chest felt tight, but her spine stayed straight. Yes, she said. Stay late. After Rachel left, Simone opened a blank document and typed a single line at the top, bold and centered. Non-negotiables. Under it, she wrote one sentence at a time, each one short, each one clean, each one a door locking. No private conversations, no in-person contact, everything in writing, everything documented. She stopped when the list ended, not because she ran out of rules, but because she ran out of tolerance for pretending this was still a marriage. Outside, daylight began to thin toward evening. The studio lights hummed softly overhead. Simone sat in the glow, surrounded by samples of beauty and order, and let the evidence sit in front of her like a design flaw she had finally decided to tear out completely. Gregory had built a second home. Now she would dismantle the foundation. The call came from an unknown number just after Simone finished a client walkthrough. She stood in the studio's back hallway with a tape measure still looped around her wrist, the scent of fresh paint clinging to her hair. For a second, she considered letting it ring out. Unknown numbers had started to feel like traps. Then she answered, "Simone Brooks?" The voice was young, tight with nerves. "It's Nicole Harper." Simone went still. The studio's overhead lights hummed faintly. Somewhere in the front, Rachel was speaking to a vendor, her voice muffled by drywall. "How did you get this number?" Simone asked. "From Gregory's phone," Nicole said quickly. "Please don't hang up. I just need 5 minutes. We have nothing to discuss." "I know you hate me," Nicole said, and the words stumbled out as if she'd rehearsed them. "You have every right. But there are things you need to know." Simone's fingers tightened around the tape measure until the metal bit into her palm. She kept her voice flat. "You have 3 minutes." Nicole exhaled, relieved she'd been allowed to stay on the line. "He told me you were separated when we met. He said the divorce was almost done. He showed me apartment listings, said he was looking." "Stop," Simone said. "I'm not trying to be innocent," Nicole replied, voice thin. "I'm trying to explain why I stayed. When I found out I was pregnant, I tried to leave. He begged me. He promised he'd tell you. Soon, he always said. Soon." Simone's jaw tightened. "You had a second child with him." A pause. When Nicole spoke again, her voice sounded smaller. "Yes, and I'm not proud of it." Simone looked down at the tape measure. The numbers blurred for a moment, not from tears, from heat. "Why are you calling me?" she asked. "Because he's getting desperate," Nicole said. The words came faster now, urgency taking over. "He keeps calling me. He says his lawyer is expensive. He wants me to help pay for his legal fees." Simone almost laughed, but the sound stayed trapped in her throat. "And? And I can't," Nicole said. "Everything I have is tied to him. The house is in my name. But he paid for it. I don't have savings. I have 2 kids, and a job that barely covers groceries." Simone's eyes narrowed slightly. "So, you want sympathy?" "No," Nicole said, sharp with embarrassment. "I want you to know what he's doing." Simone waited, silent. Nicole swallowed audibly. "He's talking about selling the Riverside house. He says he needs to liquidate assets for the settlement. He says his lawyer told him he can force a sale." Simone's spine stiffened. That wasn't just messy. It was a move, a pressure tactic, another way to claw at control. "He can't sell it," Simone said. "That's what I thought," Nicole replied. "But his lawyer said because he paid for it, he has a claim. He's been angry about it. He's been different." Simone shifted her weight, gaze fixed on the closed studio door at the end of the hall. She could still hear Rachel's muffled conversation, normal life happening behind a wall. "What do you mean, different?" Simone asked. Nicole hesitated. "He's not just sad. He's not just apologizing. He's furious, like he's entitled to get something back. From you, from me, from whoever he decides ruined his life." Simone's chest tightened. "Did he threaten you?" "Not directly," Nicole said, "but the way he looked at me when I said I couldn't help him, I've never seen him like that. He said I was ungrateful, that I owed him, that he gave me everything." Simone's mouth went dry. The entitlement was familiar. The same tone Gregory used when he thought the world belonged to him. "And why?" Simone asked coldly. "Should I care about your fear now?" Nicole's voice cracked. "Because if he's willing to turn on me, he'll turn on you. I'm not calling to bond with you. I'm calling to warn you." Silence stretched between them. Simone could hear her own breathing, controlled, measured. She could also hear the faint buzz of a fluorescent bulb above her head, irritatingly steady. Nicole spoke again, quieter. "I'm sorry, Simone. I know you don't want to hear it. I know it doesn't fix anything. I needed you to know he's unraveling." Simone closed her eyes for a beat. The image that surfaced was not Gregory pleading. It was Gregory's face when the officer told him to leave. That flash of anger he tried to hide. The look that said he believed rules were for other people. "If he contacts you again," Simone said, voice clipped, "call the police. Don't wait." "Okay," Nicole whispered. "And if he comes near me," Simone continued, "the police will be called. Every time. He doesn't get to rewrite reality with intimidation." Nicole exhaled shakily. "Thank you." Simone didn't soften. "Don't thank me. Keep your children safe. That's your responsibility." "I will," Nicole said. "I'm trying to do the right thing now." Simone's grip loosened slightly on the tape measure. Her voice stayed level. "Send me any message he sends you about selling the house," she said. "Screenshots, dates, times." Nicole paused, surprised. "You want that?" "I want everything documented," Simone said. "Okay," Nicole replied quickly. "I'll send them." Simone didn't offer comfort. She didn't offer forgiveness. She ended the call, the way she ended every interaction with Gregory now, cleanly. The screen went dark in her hand. She stood for a moment longer, listening to the studio around her, the distant scrape of a chair, the faint rustle of paper, a life that still demanded competence. Then she walked into her office, pulled up Patricia's contact, and called. Patricia answered on the first ring. "Nicole Harper called," Simone said. Patricia's tone sharpened instantly. "And?" "She says Gregory is desperate. He wants her to help pay legal fees. He's talking about forcing a sale of the Riverside property." Simone's eyes flicked to her computer clock, memorizing the time. "She says he's angry, unstable." Patricia's voice went colder. "Good. That means pressure is working." Simone's mouth tightened. "It also means he might escalate." "I agree," Patricia said. "We move faster. You forward anything Nicole sends. And Simone, if he violates any boundary, we don't negotiate. We file." Simone stared at the quiet office, at the neat stacks of samples and contracts that proved she still had a life outside this. "Understood," she said. After she hung up, Simone opened a new folder on her desktop and labeled it in plain text. Escalation. She set her phone beside the keyboard and waited for Nicole's first screenshots, already hearing in her mind the sound of a stamp hitting paper, date and time, turning fear into record into leverage. Nicole's screenshots arrived before sunrise. They came in a tight cluster cropped message bubbles, Gregory's name at the top, timestamps stacked like a staircase. The light from Simone's phone washed her bedroom ceiling, a cold blue as she scrolled. "I need cash. Don't ignore me. I paid for that house. I can sell it. You owe me." Simone saved every image into the escalation folder, then forwarded them to Patricia without commentary. Evidence didn't need emotion. By 9, Patricia called back. Her voice was brisk, sharpened by opportunity. "This is useful," she said. "He's putting entitlement in writing." "He's frightening her," Simone replied, standing at her kitchen counter, the new keys laid out in a neat line beside her coffee mug. "He's trying to control her," Patricia corrected. "And by extension, you." Simone looked out the window. A delivery truck rolled past, brakes hissing softly. The neighborhood kept moving. "What do we do?" Simone asked. "We prepare," Patricia said. "Settlement pressure stays on. but we tighten safety. Change every password. Two-factor authentication. Credit monitoring. And if he shows up, you call police. Every time. Simone set the phone down and opened her laptop. The screen brightened, reflecting her face calm, pale, focused. She changed passwords first, moving down the list with a mechanical steadiness. Bank, email, credit cards, utilities, business accounts. She enabled two-factor authentication, watched confirmation codes arrive, typed them in, and saved backup keys to an encrypted drive. Each click felt like sealing a seam. At 11, First National Bank called. The representative's voice was polite, trained to sound calm even when delivering a threat. Mrs. Brooks, I'm calling because there's been unusual activity on your accounts. Simone's stomach tightened. What kind of activity? Someone attempted to access your accounts using your social security number and personal information, the representative said. Our system blocked the attempt, but we wanted to alert you immediately. Simone's fingers went cold on the edge of her desk. When? About an hour ago, the representative answered. The attempt came from an IP address in this city. The air in the office felt thinner. Simone could hear her own heartbeat, steady but louder than it should have been. The studio outside her door hummed with normal work sounds, printers, footsteps, a faint clink of ceramic as Rachel set down a mug. Do you know anyone who might have that information? The representative asked. Simone didn't hesitate. My ex-husband. A short pause, then the representative's voice shifted, more formal. I recommend changing all passwords and setting up additional security measures. We're filing a fraud report. Simone thanked her and ended the call. For a moment she sat still, palms flat on her desk, feeling the heat rise behind her ribs. Not panic anger, clean, directed. She called Patricia. He tried to access my bank accounts, Simone said. When? Patricia's tone snapped into seriousness. This morning. The bank blocked it. Patricia exhaled once, sharp. That's criminal. File a police report now. Simone's nails tapped lightly against her phone as she listened. Then she stood and walked into the studio's small conference room, shutting the door behind her. The glass panel reflected her lipstick perfect, shoulders square like she was watching someone else take control. She called the police. The officer who took the report sounded sympathetic but careful, the kind of voice that carried too many similar stories. Without direct proof it was him, it's difficult to pursue. But we'll open an investigation. In the meantime, document everything. Save the bank alert. Monitor your credit. If he contacts you again or shows up, call immediately. Simone asked for the report number. The officer gave it. Simone wrote it down by hand, pen scratching across paper. Ink, date, number, real, trackable. After she hung up, she printed the bank's fraud alert email and stapled it to a page labeled Incident Log. The stapler snapped shut with a hard, satisfying clack. She added one line beneath it. Attempted account, access blocked. Bank notified, police report filed. Then she placed the page into her growing folder. The physical one, she kept locked in a drawer now. Digital records could be manipulated. Paper could be stamped, signed, carried into court like a brick. In the afternoon, Rachel knocked softly at the conference room door. You okay? She asked, eyes searching. Simone opened the door just enough to meet her. The air outside smelled faintly of coffee and fabric. I'm fine, Simone said. Rachel didn't believe her, but she nodded anyway. There's a client on line 2. Simone returned to her desk and took the call. Voice smooth, professional. as if her morning hadn't included attempted financial intrusion. She discussed paint finishes and budget allocations. She laughed at the right moment. She scheduled the next meeting. When the call ended, her hands finally trembled just once. A small shiver that passed through her fingers and was gone. She stood and walked to the studio's front window. Across the street, a man sat in a car at the curb, head down, phone lit against his face. For a second, Simone's chest tightened in reflex. Then she recognized the shape of the car, the angle of the windshield, the way the driver's shoulders sat, tense and stubborn. Gregory. He wasn't looking up. He was just sitting there, like presence alone was a message. Simone didn't wave. She didn't flinch. She lifted her phone and took a photo through the glass, zooming until his face was clear enough to be undeniable. The camera shutter sound was muted, but it felt loud in her mind. She saved it, time-stamped. She walked back to her desk, forwarded it to Patricia, and typed one sentence. Patricia replied within minutes. "Call the police." Now, Simone stared at the message, then at the photo again. Gregory in his car, parked like a claim, like surveillance, like ownership. She dialed. This time, when the officer arrived, Gregory drove off before anyone could confront him. The patrol car's lights flashed once in the late afternoon, blue and red streaks across the studio windows, then disappeared. The street returned to normal, but Simone didn't. That night, at home, Candace insisted on staying again. She walked through the house checking window locks like she'd done it 100 times. The security cameras blinked in the corners, tiny red dots in the dark. Simone lay in bed listening to the quiet. The house creaked softly as it cooled. Somewhere outside, a sprinkler clicked on and began its steady hiss. Her phone vibrated on the nightstand, another notification filtered into the Gregory folder. Another attempt to press into her life. Simone didn't open it. She rolled over and stared at the ceiling, jaw clenched, eyes dry. He wasn't trying to win her back. He was trying to break the walls she'd built, and now she had proof he'd started doing it with more than words. 3 months after the settlement, the harassment had shrunk into patterns. Not loud confrontations anymore, small intrusions that forced Simone to keep proving she wasn't imagining it. A slow drive past her house after midnight, headlights off until the last second. A car idling across from her studio, long enough to make Rachel walk her to her own vehicle. A bouquet delivered to a client with a card that read like a sick joke. Simone documented everything anyway. Dates, times, photos through glass, screenshots with metadata, police report numbers written in ink. The restraining order arrived on a Tuesday, signed and stamped, the paper crisp at the edges. 500 feet. No contact, no third parties, no ambiguity. Simone held it for a moment in her office, feeling the faint ridge where the seal had been pressed into the page. Protection. Printed. That night, she slept with the phone on her nightstand, and the security monitor angled toward the bed. 2 days later, her bank called again. Not the same representative this time. A different voice. Same careful tone. "Mrs. Brooks, we're seeing another flagged attempt," the woman said. "Someone tried to reset access using identifying information. It was blocked." Simone's fingers tightened around the mug in her hand. The ceramic was warm. Her skin felt cold. "Do you have the time?" Simone asked. "Yes," the representative replied, and read it out. The time landed like a stone. Simone wrote it down in her incident log, pen scratching hard enough to leave an imprint on the next page. Then she asked for the reference number and wrote that too. When she hung up, she sat still in the quiet kitchen, listening to the refrigerator hum. Candace was in the living room, typing on her laptop, the soft clack of keys steady and normal. Simone's phone buzzed with a message from Patricia. If there's another attempt, we file criminal complaint again. Keep everything. Simone looked at the words, then at the stack of evidence she'd built like a wall. She wasn't guessing anymore. She was watching someone try to break into a life he'd already been ordered to leave. Her phone rang again. Unknown number. Simone hesitated, then answered. Mrs. Brooks? The man sounded older, careful. My name is Daniel Robertson. The name meant nothing at first. Then it clicked. Gregory had mentioned him once or twice, like background furniture, a partner, a voice on speakerphone during work trips. I don't take calls about Gregory, Simone said automatically. There's a court order. I understand, Daniel replied quickly. I'm not calling about your relationship. I'm calling about the business. And I think Gregory has been stealing from it. Silence tightened the air around Simone's head. What are you talking about? She asked. Daniel exhaled. Our firm. We're 50-50 partners. For months, I've been seeing discrepancies. Transfers I couldn't explain. Expenses that didn't match any project. Simone's eyes moved to the window, to the street outside. Daylight. People walking dogs. Life pretending it didn't know. How much? She asked. Over the last 3 years? Daniel said. Close to 200,000. Simone felt something shift. Not surprise, recognition. Theft was Gregory's language. He just changed the account it came from. Why are you calling me? Simone asked. Because my lawyer thinks the money might overlap, Daniel said. If he was moving funds between the business and your household accounts, there may be records from your divorce investigation that could help prove the pattern. Simone stared at the restraining order on her counter, the paper that had promised distance. Distance didn't stop consequences from arriving. I can't give you anything without my attorney, Simone said. Of course, Daniel replied. I'm not asking you to do anything illegal. I'm asking if you're willing to meet me and hear what we found. If you've already uncovered hidden accounts, it could connect. Simone's throat went dry. She could hear Candace's typing pause, then resume, as if the house sensed tension. Where? Simone asked. A coffee shop downtown, Daniel said. Somewhere public. Tomorrow morning? Simone agreed without saying yes. When she ended the call, she stood at the counter and stared at nothing for a moment. The smell of coffee in her mug turned bitter. Candace looked up from the living room. Who was that? A business partner, Simone said. Gregory's. Candace's eyes narrowed. And Simone's voice stayed even. He thinks Gregory's been embezzling. Candace let out a slow breath. Of course he has. Simone picked up her phone and called Patricia. Patricia answered on the first ring. Talk to me. Gregory's business partner called, Simone said. Daniel Robertson. He says Gregory stole from their firm. 200,000. Patricia went quiet for half a beat. The kind of silence that meant calculation, not shock. That's criminal, Patricia said finally, and Simone could hear the grim satisfaction under the professionalism. This is exactly what we want. Criminal exposure makes harassers very busy. He wants to meet, Simone said. He wants help connecting the accounts. Do not bring him anything directly. You listen. You take notes. If he has documents, you photograph them. Then you bring everything to me. If this is real, we can coordinate with his counsel. Simone's fingers flexed against the phone. A small release of tension. And Simone, Patricia added, voice sharpening. This is why we kept your records clean. This is why you documented everything. Patterns don't lie. Simone glanced at the cabinet, where her evidence folder sat, locked, thick with paper, and stamped dates. Outside, a car passed, tires whispering over pavement. Inside, Simone felt the situation turn like a door swinging open in a direction Gregory hadn't anticipated. He had tried to control her with fear. Now his own habits were calling other people to the fight. Daniel chose a table with his back to the wall. The cafe was bright with morning sun, all glass and pale wood, the air smelling like espresso and warm pastries. A grinder screamed behind the counter, then softened into a low hum. Simone arrived precisely on time and didn't take off her coat. Daniel stood to greet her, hands tense around a paper cup, as if he needed something to hold. "Thank you for coming," he said. Simone didn't smile. She sat across from him and kept her phone face down on the table, camera ready. "I'm here to listen," she said. "Nothing else." Daniel nodded quickly, like he was grateful for the boundary. He slid a thin folder toward her. No logo, no letterhead, just paper, clipped and clean. "I hired a forensic accountant," Daniel said, voice lowered. "I didn't want to believe it at first. Gregory's persuasive. He always had explanations. Then, the explanations started contradicting the numbers." Simone opened the folder. Inside were spreadsheets printed in tight columns, highlighted rows, transaction IDs, dates, amounts, a ledger that looked like a heartbeat monitor, steady, repetitive, undeniable. Daniel tapped one section with his index finger. "These are transfers from the business operating account." They were coded as vendor payments. Simone's eyes tracked the line items. The recipient names were generic, almost lazy. Consulting, services, logistics. She didn't need a finance degree to recognize camouflage. "And these?" Simone asked, tapping another row. Daniel's mouth tightened. "Those are the accounts we couldn't trace at first. Shell accounts. He used them as a wash." Simone's phone vibrated softly on the table. A message from Patricia. "Remember, photograph. Don't take. Public place. Keep it clean." Simone turned the phone over and took a photo of the page, making sure the transaction ID and date were visible. The camera shutter clicked quietly. Daniel watched her, then exhaled as if her calm made the situation real enough to handle. "My accountant pulled bank confirmations," Daniel continued, pulling out a second set of pages. "I also got copies of credit card statements through the company. Gregory submitted them as client entertainment." Simone scanned the descriptions. Hotel stays, luxury retail, resort charges. She felt a tight, bitter pressure behind her ribs. Not emotion, not exactly. More like a door closing on any remaining doubt. "Do you recognize any of these?" Daniel asked. Simone's eyes paused on a hotel name she'd seen in Thomas Morrison's report. Same city, same dates. Gregory's conference. "Yes," she said. Daniel's shoulders lowered slightly. "Then, it overlaps." Simone looked up, voice steady. "Why are you telling me this now? Why not handle it internally?" Daniel's laugh was short and humorless. "I tried. When I confronted him, he got offended, called me paranoid, said I was sabotaging the firm out of jealousy." "And when you pushed harder?" Simone asked. Daniel's gaze flicked toward the window, as if he half expected Gregory to walk in. "He threatened to sue me, said he'd destroy me, said he had files on everyone." Simone's mouth went dry. Daniel slid one more document forward. "This is the part my lawyer thinks matters for you." Simone glanced down. A copy of a wire transfer confirmation. Recipient account masked except for the last 4 digits. The amount was large enough to make the black ink look heavier. The timestamp sat near the top. Simone's eyes narrowed as she read it. She didn't need to speak the time out loud to feel the familiar sting of it. Daniel watched her face. That transfer was marked as vendor payment, but it went to a personal account. The same account later paid private school tuition. Simone took another photo, then another, close enough to catch the bank's reference number and the date stamp. "How sure are you?" Simone asked. Daniel's jaw tightened. "My accountant is sure. My lawyer is sure. I'm done being polite." Simone closed the folder slowly. The paper made a soft, dry sound, like leaves pressed together. "Do you have a copy of this?" she asked. Daniel nodded. "Multiple. Stored off-site. My lawyer has them. My accountant has them. I'm not trying to rely on a single folder." "Good," Simone thought. "He's learning the language of proof." Simone set her hands flat on the table. "You need to go through counsel." "I am," Daniel said quickly. "My lawyer is drafting the complaint. Breach of fiduciary duty, embezzlement, fraud. And you want me to—" Simone kept her voice neutral. "Confirm the pattern," Daniel said. "Your divorce investigation, if it uncovered hidden accounts, if it shows the same routing, it strengthens our case. He'll claim this was business. But if it matches what he did in your marriage, it shows intent." Simone stared at Daniel for a beat, then nodded once. "I'll speak to my attorney," she said. "If she agrees, she'll coordinate with yours. I won't hand you anything directly." Daniel's shoulders eased. "Thank you." Simone didn't say "you're welcome." She stood, picked up her coffee without drinking it, and slipped her phone into her bag. As she turned to leave, Daniel spoke again, softer. "There's one more thing," he said. Simone paused. Daniel's hand hovered over the folder, as if it could bite. "Gregory's been asking payroll for employee files, personal data, social security numbers, addresses." Simone's stomach dropped. "Why?" Daniel swallowed. He claimed it was for an audit, but the request came after he started unraveling. After everything. Simone felt her pulse shift. Faster now, not from fear but from recognition of escalation. That wasn't desperation. That was planning. Simone's voice stayed even. "You need to flag that." "Immediately," Daniel nodded. "We did." HR refused without formal documentation. "Good," Simone thought. A door that didn't open. She walked out into the sunlight. The air outside was crisp and clean, too clean for the ugliness sitting inside her chest. Her car keys jingled softly as she unlocked the door. Once inside, she called Patricia. Patricia answered, already sharp. "How did it go?" Simone spoke in measured sentences. "He has printed ledgers, transaction IDs, wire confirmations, fraud patterns. And he says Gregory tried to access employee personal data." Patricia exhaled, slow. Simone's fingers tightened around the steering wheel. "What do we do?" "We bring this into daylight," Patricia said. "Public, procedural, undeniable." Simone stared straight ahead, watching a pedestrian cross the street with a coffee in hand, oblivious. In her bag, her phone held the photos, numbers, timestamps, reference codes, quiet ammunition, and for the first time in months, Simone felt the advantage shift hard in her favor. Patricia chose the conference room with the glass walls, not for aesthetics, because glass discouraged theatrics, because nothing felt private, because men like Gregory behaved better when they could be seen. Simone arrived early. The building lobby smelled like lemon polish and hot printer toner. An elevator chimed, metallic and hollow, as she rode up with her folder pressed flat against her ribs. Inside the conference room, the table was bare, except for a stack of documents and a small evidence bag Patricia had brought. Clear plastic with a white label strip for signatures. The kind of thing that made story turn into case. Patricia stood near the window, blazer crisp, expression calm. "Daniel's counsel is here," she said. They're ready to file. Today. Simone nodded once and took her seat. When the door opened again, Daniel entered with his attorney, a woman with tight hair and sharper eyes, carrying a laptop case. They greeted Simone with brief nods, then sat. No one reached for coffee. No one smiled. A minute later, the last chair scraped back. Gregory walked in. He looked better than Simone expected. Not refreshed, just dressed for battle. Dark suit, expensive watch, the same confident posture he used at charity dinners, as if he could wear authority into existence. His lawyer followed him, younger, slick, already scanning the room like a courtroom. Gregory's eyes landed on Simone. For a split second, his face softened, like he wanted the old dynamic back, her silence, his control. Then his gaze caught the evidence bag on the table. His mouth tightened. "Simone," he said, voice low, "I thought we agreed to handle this privately." Simone didn't answer. Patricia gestured toward the chair. "Sit." Gregory's lawyer leaned in, murmuring something. Gregory sat anyway, movements stiff. Patricia slid a single page across the table, clean, centered, with a bold title, "Notice of Reported Fraud Attempt." Gregory's eyebrows lifted with practiced disbelief. "What is this?" Simone watched his hands. They were steady, but his thumb tapped once against the paper's edge. A tell, a small crack. Patricia spoke, precise. "Your ex-wife received a bank alert. An attempted access using her identifying information. Police report filed. Here is the incident log." She placed another sheet down. Dates, times, reference numbers. The ink was dark, deliberate. Gregory's lawyer tried a laugh that didn't land. "This is speculation. You can't prove." Patricia cut him off. "The bank can, with IP logs, and if your client wants to claim it wasn't him, he's welcome to sign an affidavit under penalty of perjury." Gregory's eyes flicked toward his lawyer. Then, back. "This is ridiculous," he said, voice sharpening. "I have nothing to do with her accounts." Simone leaned forward slightly. Not aggressive, just present. "Then you won't mind the subpoena," she said. A small pause. Gregory's jaw flexed. Patricia didn't let the silence settle. She slid a second packet forward 3 pages, stapled, with numbers highlighted in yellow. "Daniel Robertson," Patricia said, turning her head toward Gregory, "has filed a complaint for embezzlement and breach of fiduciary duty." Gregory's face didn't change immediately. He was too trained for that. Instead, his voice turned smooth, almost amused. "Daniel and I will handle our disagreements internally." Daniel's attorney opened her laptop, the fan whirring softly. "Not anymore," she said. She turned the screen so the table could see. A spreadsheet filled the display. Transaction IDs, amounts, dates, a set of line items too consistent to be coincidence. Then she clicked. A wire confirmation opened. The bank reference number sat at the top like a stamp of truth. The timestamp was clear. The last 4 digits of the recipient account matched the same account in Daniel's ledger. Gregory leaned forward despite himself. Simone watched the moment his confidence betrayed him. His eyes narrowed, focusing too hard. His lips parted slightly, as if he was already building a lie. But the lie needed oxygen. Daniel's attorney clicked again. A second document, credit card statements, submitted as client entertainment, hotel charges, retail, travel. Gregory's lawyer shifted in his chair. "Those are expenses." Daniel's attorney spoke over him, calm. "They are personal expenses billed to the firm. We have vendor verification. We have bank confirmations. We have an accountant's affidavit." Patricia lifted the clear evidence bag. The plastic crinkled softly in her hand. "And we have chain of custody." Patricia said. Photographs taken by a licensed investigator. Financial analysis by a forensic accountant. Bank alerts with reference numbers. Police report numbers. Everything dated. Gregory's smile thinned. You think you can bury me with paperwork? Simone's gaze stayed on him, unblinking. You buried yourself, she said. Gregory's nostrils flared. This is a coordinated attack. Patricia's voice remained almost gentle. No, this is your pattern being documented. Gregory's lawyer tried to regain the floor. Let's talk settlement. My client is willing to negotiate. Daniel's attorney closed her laptop with a quiet click. We're past negotiation. Gregory sat back, finally showing frustration. Daniel, don't be stupid, he snapped. If you do this, you destroy the firm. Daniel's voice was steady, tired. You destroyed it. I'm just naming what you did. Gregory turned to Simone, the mask slipping. Is this what you want? His voice sharpened. To watch me lose everything? Simone didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. I want you to stop, she said. Stop showing up. Stop trying to break into my accounts. Stop using other people's lives as leverage. Gregory's eyes flashed. You took everything from me. Simone's expression didn't change. You handed it over, she said, one lie at a time. For a moment, the room went still, except for the faint hum of the building's HVAC and the distant ding of an elevator. The quiet wasn't peace. It was pressure. Gregory's lawyer leaned toward him, whispering urgently. Gregory's face tightened with fury, then with calculation. He looked back at Daniel. Fine, Gregory said, voice cold. File your little lawsuit. Then he looked at Simone again, and the entitlement surfaced like oil. But don't think you're untouchable, he added. You're not. Patricia's eyes narrowed. That sounds like a threat, Gregory scoffed. Too quick. It's reality. Simone felt the words land in her chest like a weight. Not because they frightened her, because they proved something. He still believed fear was a tool. Patricia stood. Meeting's over, she said. She tapped the evidence bag label with her pen. And for the record, that last statement will be included in our filings. Gregory pushed his chair back hard enough that it scraped loudly against the floor. The sound cut through the room like a warning. He left without shaking hands, his lawyer chasing after him, already talking fast. Daniel exhaled and rubbed a hand over his face, like relief and exhaustion were the same thing. Patricia looked at Simone. You heard it, she said quietly. He's cornered. That makes him unpredictable. Simone stared at the closed door, her pulse steady, her mind already organizing next steps. Then we tighten everything, she said. Patricia nodded. And we filed today. Simone reached for the evidence bag and signed her name on the label strip black ink, on white, clean and final. Outside the glass walls, the world moved like nothing had changed. Inside, the trap had snapped shut, and Gregory had just confirmed he knew it. The city didn't announce consequences with fireworks. It delivered them in emails, court notices, and quiet departures. A week after the filing, Simone arrived at her studio to find 2 voicemails from longtime clients canceling consultations. Their words were careful, embarrassed, as if dishonesty could be contagious through association. She deleted them without listening twice, and walked straight into the workroom where fabric books lay open like calm, obedient maps. Rachel watched her from behind the reception desk, eyes worried. You okay? Simone placed her bag down, smoothed the edge of a sample board, and nodded. We keep building, she said. By Friday, the rumor had become a headline, not a sensational one, just a business brief buried in the local paper's online section. Consulting firm partner files suit. alleging misappropriation of funds. No name in the first paragraph, just a prominent local consultant. But the city was small. People knew. The first visible change came from the street. Simone parked behind her studio like always. The air smelled of wet asphalt from an early drizzle. When she stepped out, she noticed the usual empty space across the road, where Gregory's car had sometimes sat, was clear. No idling, no watching. The quiet felt suspicious at first. Then it began to feel like oxygen. 2 weeks later, Daniel's lawyer emailed Patricia an update. Emergency motions granted. Financial records compelled. Accounts frozen, pending review. There were attachments, PDFs with seals, signatures, dates. Simone didn't open them right away. She stood in her kitchen with her phone in her hand, staring at the screen as if it might blink into something else. Candace made tea behind her, the kettle clicking off with a soft snap. The steam smelled faintly of chamomile. "It's moving fast," Candace said, reading Simone's face. "It has to," Simone replied. Her voice didn't shake. "Fast means he's busy." The next sign came in the form of a cardboard box left at her front door. No note, no apology, just a medium-sized box, taped sloppily, corners dented like it had been kicked down a hallway. Simone didn't touch it with bare hands. She pulled on rubber gloves from under the sink, lifted the box onto the porch bench, and sliced the tape open with a kitchen knife. Inside were Gregory's leftovers, from a life he'd once claimed was half his. A framed photo of their wedding, glass cracked. A book he'd borrowed and never returned. A set of cufflinks in a velvet pouch. A cheap USB drive with a label written in pen, "For you." Simone didn't plug it in. She dropped it into a zip bag, sealed it, and texted Patricia one line, "He left a USB at my door." Patricia responded immediately, "Do not open. Bring it to me." Simone closed the box, shoved it back outside, and locked the door. The sound of the deadbolt sliding into place was louder than it should have been, like punctuation. After that, Gregory disappeared from her daily life, the way a bad smell fades when a window is opened. No more late-night drive-bys. No more messages that slipped past filters. No more flowers sent like threats disguised as romance. It wasn't redemption. It was depletion. A month later, Rachel brought her phone into the studio workroom, face pale. "You need to see this," she said. On the screen was a photo from someone's social feed. Gregory, outside a courthouse, tie loosened, hair uncombed, jaw clenched so hard the muscles stood out. The caption was simple, "He's done." Simone stared at the image for a long moment. She expected satisfaction. She expected heat. What she felt instead was distance, like looking at a storm on a weather app after it's already passed your neighborhood. 2 days after that, Patricia called with a clipped kind of victory. "Daniel's case is going public in court next week. Your restraining order violations are part of the record now. His counsel can't spin him as a victim." "And the bank attempts?" Simone asked. "Still under investigation," Patricia said. "But it's no longer your word against his. It's pattern against pattern." Simone stepped into her studio's empty conference room and shut the door. The building's air conditioning hummed softly overhead. "Is it over?" she asked. Patricia paused. "It's ending," she said, "which is different. Ending means we stay vigilant, but you can breathe." Simone looked at her own reflection in the dark glass window, shoulders back, eyes steady. She didn't look like a woman waiting to be rescued. She looked like a woman who had already saved herself. That evening, she sat alone in her living room. The house smelled faintly of fresh paint and cedar from the new shelves she'd installed last week. Her phone lay face down on the coffee table. No buzzing, No interruptions. She poured a glass of iced tea, condensation slick under her fingers, and listened to the ice shift in the glass with a soft clink. On the mantel, the crystal vase caught the last sun and scattered small rainbows onto the cream walls, quiet, ordinary light. She thought about how fear had once lived in the corners of her routines. Now it had less space. Her laptop chimed with an email notification. A signed contract for a boutique hotel redesign. The message was short, excited, professional, normal. Simone typed her reply, fingers calm on the keys. Confirmed. Looking forward to it. She hit send. Then she stood and walked through the rooms of her house, not checking locks out of panic, but out of habit. Everything held. Everything stayed in place. At the front door, she rested her hand on the knob for a second and felt the cool metal against her palm. No one was on the porch. No one was waiting in the dark. She turned off the lights, the house settling into silence behind her, and went upstairs without looking back. The world didn't applaud. It didn't need to. It simply kept moving this time, without him in the frame.